Hey everyone, I promised somebody I would do a quick video on how I use landscape fabric. I've used it for about 8 or 9 years now, and I like using it in some spots, and other spots I don't like it. Some places it's a real benefit, and other places it's a pain. But anyway, this is what I'm doing. Now, if you look from this spot right here all the way over to the fence and all the way down to the end, that's where I use the landscape fabric in this garden. Now, I put double layer cardboard after I remove the tape and all the labels from it. Double layer cardboard all the way down, all the way around for the whole thing. Now, there's a furniture and appliance place in town, so I went out there every Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday and picked up cardboard. It only took me a week to get enough to cover this thing. And I'm talking about big sheets of cardboard. Don't try not to use the little pieces. It can be a real pain. But I put them down, I watered them, took the tape off, laid them all down. I started from the bottom of the slope, worked my way up, and then I marked where I wanted my raised beds, and I put the landscape fabric down as my walkways. I started, because this is the upper part of the slope, I started right here all the way down, all the way across, and then I put a couple of pieces across this way, just to help with the water flow. And then wherever my raised beds were, I left the cardboard exposed, and I put these bricks around them, or I put wood around them, and I just filled it up with compost. I only put maybe 2 or 3 inches of compost in it. And that first year I got some pretty good growth in both these beds. That was the first year. I added this one the second year. And but the second year, the second season of growing in these things, it's completely awesome. Now, there's no such thing as weed free. You still got to go through here, once a week and pick out the little pieces of little weeds, but it sure diminishes them quite a bit. Now, I use drip. I created this little, gizmo here to help me water my garden. I got a valve set up for this row over here, valve here, and a valve for the main garden. Now, you have to staple down all your rows or your walkways. Wherever I use landscape fabric in the main gardens, I do not use staples. I use those landscape timbers. You can see them right there. I used to use sandbags, and I still use a lot of sandbags, but sandbags only work for about 1.5 years, 2 years at the most. Then they start splitting. UV just kills them. So I've gone to the landscape timbers. They were on sale. I got them for less than $1.65 for an 8-foot piece. And I just went in there and I loaded my truck up. This is where I grow all my sweet potatoes and my potatoes in buckets. And this is, so there's no this is all cardboard, also with landscape material on it. I got sick and tired of the weeds, so I burned down the weeds along the fence. I lifted the end of the fabric and the cardboard, and I put down roofing shingles. That's not going to stop the weeds coming from the other side, but it'll at least stop the weeds from right here at the edge of the fence inward. Now, another thing I use fabric for is these raised beds here. I'll grow a cover crop on these, and what I'll do is when I cut down the cover crop, and I make sure that they don't get too tall, otherwise they're a pain to use. I can use a little push lawnmower on top of here. Of course, I remove the drip tape first, then I mow the cover crop down. Then I can see that landscape material that's on the very end on here. I haven't planted this part of the garden yet. It's going to be when my tomatoes and peppers going this year. So I have a full piece, 6.5 feet wide, and it covers the whole bed after I mow the cover crop down. And if I mow the cover crop down, I like to put my drip tape back on top, put the landscape material over top of it, then I can water this always, and then by the time I get 3 or 4 months comes around when I want to plant on it, all that cover crop is already incorporated into the soil. The worms knock it down real good. Now, another thing I do with this landscape material, it's 6.5 feet wide. So what I do is I burn holes in the center where I want to plant crops. Now, right now, I only have a few of these with holes in them. I got one that's 60 foot long, and it has holes every foot, 2 rows, a foot apart, in every foot. And that's 100 holes I get into that landscape material. And I use those holes to grow my green beans in. And last year I got 26 quarts of green beans, and I expect probably I'm going to double that this year. And then, of course, those ones with the burnt holes go in the main garden. So this was a cover crop. I mowed the cover crop, and then I actually went to town. I rented the MTA Honda tiller from Home Depot. I hate to plug a Home Depot, but that's a really good tiller. And I tilled this all up nice and loose. And I put this solid sharp over the top and landscape materials around it. After I watered it for a good 3-4 hours, got it really soaking wet, and put it on there. And when you pull this back, there'll be no leftover cover crop. I mean, the worms and everything in the biology in the soil will take care of it and enrich the soil. And then when I plant this, I'll do the same thing. It'll be drip. I'll come down here. I got a Haas wheel hole, and I'll wheel hole troughs wherever I'm going to put the drip tape. I'll lay in mimics in those troughs, cover them with the wheel hole, and I'll put the landscape fabric on top with the drip tape that's in that trough, and then the holes will be on either side of the drip tape, and I'll plant all my green beans. Then I got a bunch of those blanks, like you said, or I told you, those 6.5 foot wide blank ones. I'll probably put another one of those down, and then I'll put another 6.5 one that's got holes every 3 feet. And I do every 3 feet, and that's for my watermelons, my acorn squash. And the rest of it I'll just leave open, and I'll plant other things in it. Now I got a cattle panel trellis I can put up, and I'll probably be doing some pole beans and that kind of thing over here, some extra tomatoes. I got another little small garden over here that's over 12 feet by 60 feet long, and this is where I'll do sweet corn this year. I alternate my stuff. I sweet corn one year, sweet corn over here another year, and vice versa. And I'll get only 4 rows out of here. I can get 6 rows out of it. I double the rows, but I'm not going to this year. I'm just going to do 4 rows because I still have probably close to 50 quarts of sweet corn in the freezer. I just want to plant I'm going to plant 3 different varieties. And 1/3 of it will be one variety, another third another variety, another third another variety. And I'll start them every 3 to 4 weeks apart. That way they don't all at one time have to be picked and put up. Anyway, that's the good part. Okay? It takes a little bit of work to make it the first time for the big part over here, but I don't have any weeds popping through. Now wherever the staples are at, weed seeds will get into anything, right? And wherever the staples are at, they'll catch some weed seeds, and they'll pop through. And of course, you got to worry about the edges. You got to worry about these edges. You got to clean them up probably once a year is all I do. See here, I got a weed here. Caught some dirt that came out of one of my beds. See, got caught by the staple, and now I got a weed sitting there. Well, you just pull it out. Yeah, and you get these little plastic things, but they're not as prevalent as you think. If I ever had to do this over again, I would fold every one of these things I did. Fold, so I'd have them fold on top, and the staple would go on top. So my advice there is, if you ever use this landscape fabric, fold it all the way around the edge and put staples in, and you'll never have the fraying. I've learned that lesson, and I've been doing that lately. So that's how I use landscape fabric. Have any questions? Just ask. So that last video was the good on landscape fabric. This is the bad. And you can see I've got a lot of weeds growing up through the landscape fabric. That's because it's got cuts and it's got rips in it and everything else. And I've snaked it with my tools and that kind of thing. Now this is 9 years old. This is 4 years old. I got some pine needles on it. That's not a big deal. But you can see where if you treat it a little bit better, it lasts a little bit longer. Now the thing with all this landscape fabric is I didn't put cardboard down. If I would have put cardboard down on it, this thing would still been weed free. And plus, I've got my little Mantis weed tiller, and I've dropped that on the landscape material, and I tore it by accident. Or my weed whacker, when I was trying to do the side here, wouldn't be shut off all the way, and I'd hit the fabric and rip it. So I've learned some lessons. These are the things that you shouldn't do. 1, don't lay down weed fabric without putting cardboard down. Second thing, make sure the ground is level. See, I didn't level this all off. See, it's got lots of humps and rises and dips and sags, and you can see right here, this big hump here. This collects a lot of water down in here, and that doesn't help either. And when you go and you build your beds on top of landscape fabric, make sure you overlap the fabric. You know, put the wood is going to actually lay on top of the fabric, maybe even a little bit on the inside of the wood, bring it up on the inside of the wood and staple on the inside of the wood. Yeah, you're still going to get weeds on the side, right? You get weeds on the sides, but you get a lot less weeds there than what I have here because the fabric only goes up to the wood, and so some of that dirt gets exposed, especially with sagging into the ground, the earth gets compacted where you walk, then you're exposing some of that earth next to the wood and weeds pop up. Now, I know I'm going to get in trouble for this, but I'm a big fan of weed killer, you know, what is it called, Roundup. Now I'll come out here on a very calm day, block my beds with cardboard and spray this green stuff and let it just lay there and die like a mulch. I don't really care. I'll rake it up after about 3 months to come up with a rake. Now I know a lot of people are going to give me trouble about that, but that's the way it goes out here in the woods, right? Out here in the country where you have acres and acres of property, you know, trying to do everything organic is just almost impossible. Anyway, that's part 2.